when I got to Dallas, the Cowboys weren't very good. So there was the history, of course, of Staubach and even before Roger, they had some good years with Meredith, and there's a lot of other players obviously that were a big part of that. But Staubach is the one who won the Super Bowls, and that's when they got coined America's team. And then there was a lull there, of many years. Danny White took over, took him to the championship game 3 years in a row. And anyway, when I came in '89, they were the worst team in football, and we were having half-empty stadiums. Our stadium was not filled when I got there. So yes, I think I think that people talk about the Cowboys quarterback like they do the the center fielder for the Yankees and all that stuff. But I think it's because of when you look at what the Cowboys have done in totality.
But how did you deal with it? Like, you dealt with it. Like who prepared you to suddenly be a superstar?
So I wasn't all that prepared, I guess, because in high school I was in a small town and played well, of course, and then went on and was at Oklahoma, went through some struggles. I had to kind of learn how to deal with real disappointment. I mean, I'd had setbacks in my life, but nothing quite like I experienced at OU. And then when I transferred, I had success at UCLA, but being in LA, it's a different kind of success than when you're in a smaller college. If you're at Alabama or someplace like that, as opposed to Tuscaloosa compared to Los Angeles. So when I got to Dallas, then it all kind of happened at the same time. The Cowboys got good, and then my I guess stardom, if you will, kind of came along at the same time, and you just kind of realize you learn as you go. I think that my parents did a good job of raising me in terms of how to interact and how to treat people and things like that. What's right, what's wrong. But the advice that I give, I gave it to Romo back when he just took over as a quarterback, and I just think that I haven't given this advice to Dak only because he hadn't asked. But what I would say is, you're going to be the quarterback for a long time. You anticipate you're going to be there for 10, 12, 15 years or so, and people don't have to know everything about you the first year. They don't have to know all that much about you in 10 years. It's just, I've always felt that a little less is more. And so I feel like I was available and people had access, but not at the level that certainly not that they do now. I think a lot of these athletes are open books, and I think you've got to protect that a little bit. And that really would be my advice, other than just go out and do your thing every single day, put in the time. There's no shortcuts. I mean, all those athletic things, but as far as how do you handle it, I just think that I tried to be myself. I mean, Roger Staubach once said to me that when he interacted with his teammates, he didn't drink, so he couldn't go have a beer with them. And I think there were some people who played the position who felt that they had to be like Roger. Well, when I came in, I was removed, and I said, well, I drink beer, and I'm gonna go have beer with the guys, with my teammates, and so I really don't know, Jay, how I'm perceived. I really don't. I just hope that however it is, I hope it's how I really am. I hope people see me for who I really am. Well,
it's not that. My point is that it's not even that. Like your life changed. You weren't like, listen, when Mr. Trubisky goes out, okay, or even Eli goes out, they get a different holy shit factor than when Troy Aikman, future Hall of Famer, goes out. That's what I mean. You became a superstar, kind of like what we're seeing. We saw Michael Jordan, The Last Dance. All of a sudden, crowds of people are around you when you probably weren't used to that ever.
Well, no, and we saw it. Like I said, we saw it happen. I mean, in my first year, we weren't getting run over by crowds of people. I think that's still. I think that the Cowboys of today do. I think they do get run over, even in a 7-9 season, 6-10 season. And the reason is it's a different time to where even when the Cowboys are struggling right now, they lead off, the top of the sports. And I don't know that it was necessarily that way when I first got to Dallas. There were, we just weren't as popular. But as we started to have our success, which happened pretty quickly, we'd go to the hotels on the road, and it was amazing how many people. I mean, it's like, holy cow, when did this happen? And it started happening in '91 before we even won our first Super Bowl. And then after we won our Super Bowl, I mean, yeah, if you played for Dallas, you were pretty much a rock star. I mean, wherever you went. And then, I don't think it would have affected me any differently if it hadn't have been that way. I do know I had some teammates that really took advantage of some of that rock star status. I do know that.
Should I take advantage of your rock star status?
But what's that?
I take advantage of your rock star status.
Yeah, I've heard. So yeah, I think it's a different time. I mean, and the Cowboys are extremely visible now.
Yeah.
But I think there's two reasons for that. One, I think it is because of what Roger Staubach and that group did, and then we doubled up on that, and then we had a nice run where we continued with the history of the success. And then there's not been that level of success, but there has been some success. And I think Jerry Jones is the other big component of this, that people want to hear what he has to say, whether they agree with it or don't agree with it. And he's been extremely successful at continuing to keep the Cowboys relevant, even when maybe the play on the field doesn't warrant them being relevant.
Hey, you bring up Roger Staubach. I have a great, I guess, kind of Roger Staubach's story, but it's really about, I guess, Arthur Smith, who just got hired for the Falcons job, his mom, Fred Smith, who was the owner of FedEx, who's his dad, right?
Yeah.
So Fred, owner of FedEx, and he is his daughter's trained with us at Unbreakable. Molly Smith, who produced Sicario, The Blind Side, La La Land, awesome. The most unassuming, huge producer that you'd ever come across in your life. It's an incredible person. And we all have lunch out in LA one day. First of all, Fred Smith shows up to Unbreakable. Fred Smith, the owner of FedEx, okay, in the back seat.
Are you name dropping, Jay?
Oh, yeah. No. In the back seat of a Prius Uber X.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he flies private and then gets a fucking Prius Uber X to Unbreakable. So he shows up and I go, Mr. Smith, what the fuck? And he goes, Jay, you can never save enough money. I go, yeah, you can. Yeah. Totally. But he's telling me a story that he is after, he's part owner of Washington, and he's they're playing Dallas one day, and he and his wife go into the elevator, and he says it's just like him and the Joneses and probably Dan Snyder, and there's Roger Staubach. And he says, and this is the great Roger Staubach. And she says, oh my gosh, I am such a huge fan of yours. I just love your coffee. So when you go Falcons game, you got that story you could use for Arthur, because Arthur's like, they dread the story. The kids dread the story.
We, Roger Staubach and I put together a NASCAR team years ago, and we went around and we were trying to get a title sponsor, so we could go race. And we actually flew to Memphis and called on Fred Smith. Roger knew him because of his real estate dealings, and I tried to, I got to know him then too. He came into the meeting briefly, but we were trying to get them to sponsor our car.
Did he do it?
No, he didn't do it. I think
with all the money he saved from Uber rides, he didn't do it.
Well, they got involved in NASCAR. I just think that they didn't want these two former quarterbacks to come in and not knowing what they knew, not knowing what they didn't know about NASCAR. We got a sponsor several years later by Texas Instruments, and we raced for a couple of years.
There you go.